Dieuwe, William, gosh, it's great to be back again. We did promise the listeners last time we appeared to discuss the fallacy of the woke right that we would be back together again. And lo and behold, to quote the Blues Brothers, we are getting the band back together. And this time, another controversial conversation, but nonetheless, I think quite an important one. And I'm sure that will sort of unfold as we go. But the Epstein client list, the Epstein scandal, the Epstein Island, the horrific paedophilic abuses that were part of this story, and the whole thing has basically taken a massive turn, like globally, and sort of exploded on the scene again in a big way a couple of weeks ago, and there's lots of political ramifications tied up in all this, so we'll get to that. But first of all, maybe there's people who are listening who have heard about the Epstein list, or they've heard the name Epstein, Jeffry Epstein. They're not quite sure of the full backstory, or maybe it'd be good to just remind people. And perhaps we'll start with you, Dieuwe. I guess the pertinent question might be, how long has the Epstein thing actually been a thing? Do you remember?
Well, for decades. I don't remember because it has gone on for that long. I believe it was as far back as the 90s that a lot of his activities were uncovered and became more well-known because there was an incident where Donald Trump banned him from Mar-a-Lago, and I do believe that was in the 90s. And so what he had been doing was something that people had known about for a very long time. And essentially, the part of it that was supposedly above board is the sort of the libertarian, or I would say the libertine part, which is that what he was doing was legal in certain jurisdictions. And so he had an island I believe on the Virgin Islands out in the Pacific, and the age of consent there was lower than the age of consent in many places in America. And he would go and fly over there. He would fly many global elites over there, and they could go and have these libertine parties and do all kinds of degenerate things, but it would all be legal. And that was essentially the origin of that scandal. Of course, it was well suspected, and you could say well known at the time, that there was worse going on there. But the cover story was that this was all just liberalism. This was just liberalism. It was all all about consent and people doing things that they wanted to do.
William, this is it is a truly bizarre case when you think about it. It's almost like a look behind the elite curtain that very rarely do you get. And what was uncovered was pretty shocking. I mean, at one stage, I believe he actually had 2 islands that he owned. The locals, I believe, had nicknamed the place Pedophile Island at one point. So clearly it was, it wasn't that hidden what was going on there. But this guy, Jeffry Epstein, in many ways you'd say like an elite character, but a very strange character too, that who he was and the circles he moved in, and then how he came to be in this situation, right?
Well, what's remarkable about it, there's many things remarkable about it, but one of the things that's remarkable about it is just how well connected this guy was. So he moved in circles and had connections with a laundry list of the Western civilization's most prominent people. So not just Donald Trump, but the Clintons and Prince Andrew and Bill Gates and a whole cast of characters, including billionaires, very wealthy and powerful people. I first became aware of this story, I think, because it was wrapped up in a lot of the discussions that were happening around Donald Trump's first campaign for presidency and his first electoral trial. I can't remember when I first actually heard about it. He's a guy who was doing some pretty depraved things. He was charged with sex trafficking. The trial was a big part of the background internet discussion during Trump's first term and Trump's second term. Many of the people who were, sort of online influencer type people were involved, had something to do with the Epstein case, or at least some of them. I'm thinking of Mike Cernovich here, who's a prominent Twitter guy who I follow, and he was involved in getting some of the files unsealed from the Florida case. But this guy was involved in what he was charged with was basically grooming and sex trafficking of children. There were two. He was charged 2 separate times. He got extremely lenient sentences, given the hideousness of the crimes. Large numbers of women, young women. We're talking about 14. And what is alleged to have been happened was they were coming into his house. They were luring them in, bringing them in, and then slowly getting them to do sexual things with Jeffrey. And then they were building a sort of a group of these young women who they were then using. And there's lots of bizarre things to do with Jeffrey Epstein. He had all these mansions everywhere. He had them rigged up with cameras in all the rooms, and like you say, he has these. He owns islands. He had connections with some of the most wealthy and powerful people in the world. He was helping them with their finances, moving their money around. He had a background at was it Bear Stearns or one of the big financial firms in the US. So he had some experience in doing that sort of thing. It's sex trafficking, pedophilia, and it really forms part of the sort of the background for a lot of the talk on Twitter and other social media forms that form the background of the Trump campaigns and presidencies.
You can't really talk about this case either, can you, Dieuwe, without talking about, I think the correct way to say her name is Ghislaine. I've seen Ghislaine, I believe it's Ghislaine Maxwell. Her involvement in this, I mean, she really is the co-conspirator, the player. She's still alive, and I believe in the last couple of days she's trying to now make a deal to sing, as they might say in the underworld, and tell a bit more of the story after years of sort of not wanting to say a word. But Ghislaine Maxwell, who is this, in her own right, is an elite, would you call her a trust fund baby, a celebrity child who becomes embroiled in this, which adds a whole nother layer because of her family connections, right?
Yes, as you say, she's still alive and she has offered to testify to Congress now. And she was sort of the right-hand woman, the madam who was heavily involved in their entire sex trafficking operation. And obviously her boss died in prison. And this is part of the conspiracy. Did he die? Did he commit suicide? Was he murdered? And this became a big essentially an election issue when he died. I'm being deliberately vague here because I'm not entirely convinced either way as to what happened to him.
Is he really
you're telling me there's nothing suspicious about it. Yeah, he's still on the island somewhere.
Is he in Tel Aviv right now, drinking cocktails?
We'll get to that point in just a second. Hold your powder for a second, William. I want to ask that question next.
Right, but there was obviously she was again charged with more of these crimes against. This is, I believe, the third time that he was finally going to be actually facing the consequences for his crimes, and then he dies under mysterious and dubious circumstances. We're told the camera didn't work in his cell suddenly, and then just a few weeks ago we get the camera footage from outside of his cell saying how we finally found the camera footage that didn't exist before. And so these are the kinds of conspiracy details that keep popping up in this story every single time to say, there was a list. Oh, no, wait, there was no list. There was no camera. We have no camera footage. We do have the camera footage. Pam Bondi saying, we have thousands of hours of footage from his mansions and all of the things that they were doing. We've got to go through all of this because we have all of this video footage of all of these crimes. We want to make sure we protect the identities of the victims. And then it doesn't exist a week later. So it doesn't matter which administration. Again, it's been through a number of different administrations, and every single time the story changes, and that's what's fed the conspiracy, because clearly there has been a conspiracy of some kind. It's just what is the nature of this conspiracy, and that's something that is difficult to answer, and a lot of people are speculating about, and that's why it continues after years and years of this to be a big story.
Ghislaine Maxwell, of course, as well, it's not just that she is the co-conspirator. I believe, if I understand the timeline correctly, there's even questions about whether or not she may have been groomed into this operation herself. But her father is significant and really ups the ante. And I know, William, you were sort of hinting at some stuff there possibly just a second ago about whether or not or where Epstein might be enjoying his Mai Tais right now. But her dad is Robert Maxwell. And this guy is, I mean, I know some of the younger generation might not be as familiar, but Robert Maxwell was a powerful figure in his own right. And he did have Mossad connections, if I understand the history correctly, William.
Yes, that's what I've heard about it as well. So this is a guy who had connections with Mossad, had connections with British intelligence. He, from what I understand, he was used as a go-between by various intelligence agencies. They sent him away to negotiate with people on their behalf. I think he fight for Britain in one of the wars, one of the world wars, and so he was an extremely well-connected and wealthy person. He managed large amounts of money, from what I understand. And according to some of the things that I've read and heard about this, Mossad, he worked with Mossad. They used his finances to finance various intelligence operations. And then the Israeli government, Mossad, would sort of pay him back. So the above board thing he was doing is he had these he was managing these investments, and then he would just sort of take money out of that to do the various things he was doing, and then they would pay him back. But yeah, and his daughter is Ghislaine Maxwell, and then she partners up with Jeffry Epstein. So not normally the type of character you would want to see your daughter involved with, but this is the type of sort of sinister relationships we're dealing with here, I guess.
Well, the thing too about Robert Maxwell is his life is an enigma in a sense as well. Like he was, people forget because he's gone now, obviously dead. His death, first of all, was mysterious. How he died. I believe, if I remember this correctly, he died on a boat and there were indications of possible struggle. It just sort of doesn't quite make sense how he died. But also he started stealing money from a pension fund. He was a massive media magnate and had a very close relationship, I believe, with, among other people, with the former head of the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev. Apparently, he was a guy who could actually just get an appointment with him if you wanted. Look, I'm coming over to see you, Mikhail. All right, I'll see you soon. He'd fly over to see him. And you're right. His connection has raised the spectre now of, was there more going on with Epstein and his operation? Was this more than just some nefarious elite libertarian hedonism and deviancy? Was this some sort of intelligence gathering operation where you could get incriminating evidence on key figures and then use that for blackmail purposes for whatever reason? It doesn't necessarily have to be for money. It could be, look, we want to use this country to get this military objective completed, or we want to use this person as a go-between to ferry illegal arms between two nations in a proxy war. It could be anything, right? What do you make, chaps, both of you, what do you make of that kind of suggestion? Is it just, unproven allegation, circumstantial? Is it fringe conspiracy? Or is there some real merit to this, do you think?
Well, this is the theory that's been sketched out by Whitney Webb, among other people, that Epstein really represents the sort of tip of the iceberg for the type of how power is wielded in the modern world. And so she builds up this theory that this is what intelligence agencies do. They compromise important people, powerful people. They blackmail them, or perhaps they allow them to compromise themselves so that they can be part of the club. And they build a network of powerful people who are in positions of power in the important institutions in society, who that they can then influence or control. And they use that to achieve their aims in society. They steer society in certain directions. So everyone's aware now of this idea of the media being biased or the media being controlled. And this theory that Whitney Webb and others sketch out says that this type of control extends well beyond the media to all of the important institutions in society, so the bureaucracy, academia, police, other important institutions like that, and that there's a network of compromised people or people who are just part of the club who they work together collaboratively to steer society in a certain direction in a form of control. So that's the theory laid out by Whitney Webb. And I guess
can I say, William, that's not wildly out there either, right? As a theory, because I mean we've tended to think of intelligence operations as like everyone's James Bond. It's exactly the opposite. It's quite a boring sort of thing. It is about literally gathering intelligence that will be useful, right?
Yeah. Well, under this theory, the intelligence agency is operating as a sort of coordinating institution between the institutions of society. And it's providing this coordination function through the network of people that it controls or influences or who are allied with it. And they use it in the media, for example. They can shape public opinion by shaping the media coverage of various subjects, by asking the people they have in these positions of power in the media to make sure that the media coverage slants a certain way. Similarly, in academia, if they control or they have assets, as they say, in various professors in various places, they can get them to do studies or do important pieces of work, or to go out there and make announcements or write letters or so forth to push a particular agenda. Similarly, in government, in the permanent bureaucracy, if they have control or influence over a set of people there, they can use it to get them to draft up laws or policies or write briefings to ministers that push a particular line or push against another particular line, depending on what they want to do. So this theory is really about intelligence agencies forming a secret coordination function between the other institutions of society. And that's what Whitney Webb lays out. Now, the question with Epstein is some people have speculated whether he was doing that on behalf of the CIA, he was doing it on behalf of Mossad, in which case what he was doing in America would be sort of a foreign influence operation, where they were trying to subvert the will of the US citizens and make the American government do what Israel wanted. And that would dovetail, if that were true, which I don't know, but people have suggested it, if that were true, that would dovetail with a lot of things that people like John Mearsheimer are saying about the Israel lobby and the power of the Israel lobby. So the Israel lobby does a lot of things that are above board. They're just an advocacy group or a confederation, a loose association of different advocacy groups that are very powerful and have a lot of control over American policy. They write policies, they influence media narratives, and they engage in all this. And Mearsheimer doesn't necessarily say they're doing anything bad in his work. He just says that they're very effective at what they do. And they have been influencing US policy in directions that have made America do things that are in the interests of Israel, but not necessarily in the interests of the US and US citizens. So if we to add on the Epstein information on top of the Israel lobby information, this would be Mossad, through Epstein, creating a network of people that they influenced or controlled, which they could use to covertly steer American society, American politics, American media in directions that were beneficial to Israel. And that would be basically the theory. But that isn't the only theory about what Epstein was doing. There's several other theories that people have sketched out. Some people believe that he was just a sex trafficker who was protecting himself because he had a lot of influence. He had compromised other people, and there was no broader conspiracy around sort of controlling the direction of the society for the benefit of Israel or the US. Some people believe he was just a just a eccentric billionaire with very dark interests who was involved in some of this illegal sexual behavior. So the intelligence blackmail operation, I think, is the most plausible theory that makes sense of all the information we have. But I don't know that for sure, and it's not the only theory that has been put forward about what he was really doing here.
Dieuwe, what are your thoughts? Because there's definitely strange things here. Look, I don't have strong feelings either way. I think you believe things when you have solid evidence in front of you, or there's reasons to believe. It's reasoned to believe or adopt a position. I think there's probably a few things up in the air at the moment, but there's certainly some strange things here. Robert Maxwell, we know, already had an established connection with Mossad, and his daughter is obviously closely involved in what's going on here. There's the circles he moves in, and also some of the strange levels of power he seemed to have with some of his connections. They were treating him as if they were sort of giving deference to him and sort of giving him leeway that probably an elite person wouldn't normally give people who are in his normal social class, beneath them. So what are your thoughts, Dieuwe, about all of this? Is there more to it? Is it just pure hedonism and blackmail?
Well, a former prime minister and intelligence minister of Israel, Naftali Bennett, did come out publicly say that Jeffry Epstein was not working for Mossad, that the Mossad told him that he was not working for them. So that alone is a strange thing for someone in his position to do, because they usually don't come out and deny things like that. Yeah. I think it's an interesting connection. I see this as essentially a pyramid where the different explanations that you have sort of stack on top of each other, with the most basic layer being that this kind of debauchery is something that the elites of society have engaged in since ancient times. So you can find it recorded in the history books, particularly from the Roman Empire, but of course from every other ancient civilization, is that the more power and the more wealth, more money people accumulate, the more debased, debauched their interests become. And the more that they find that they see themselves as above the law, see themselves as being able to get away with anything that they want, they always want more. And so you get this hubris that forms, and this is a part of the human story. So that at the very basic level is where all the other theories stack on top of that, because then people take advantage of that. People understand how human nature works. They know that these people like to get involved in these kinds of things, and so you have almost an industry that develops behind the scenes in providing people with these things, and then manipulating them through that. Having the information that they do these things then gives you power over them, and so. If you're all the way at the top in these intelligence agencies, there is a massive draw there for you to get involved in that. That's a completely, essentially a natural staircase or pyramid to walk this up. So that's why I think the intelligence agency, the connection to the intelligence agencies is very plausible, even though it's the hardest one to prove. The most concrete proof for it perhaps is the fact that it's still buried to this day. The list, who are they sex trafficking to? We still don't have the list. And so the fact that everybody knows it exists and that it hasn't been released and it won't be released would be in itself the greatest evidence that there was some connection to intelligence agencies. Otherwise, you wouldn't really have anybody that's that important that you need to protect. But countries will protect their national intelligence agencies above everything else.
It seems to me, too, that in all of this, there's one theory that I don't subscribe to, and that basically whether this was a deeper planned conspiracy or it just whatever else it was, it definitely wasn't just Jeffry Epstein, one man alone. It seems to me that I think those who are, particularly those who are powerful and in elite positions who have been embroiled in this, that's desperately what they want the rest of the world to believe. Oh no, he was just a deviant man. He abused these awful, did these awful things to these poor young victims, but it had nothing to do with us. But at the very least, you'd say that there was an elite culture. I mean, we know they did more than just this, but at the very least, they turned a blind eye to what was going on. But it's absolutely clear that there were high-powered and very powerful people who actually joined in and participated in this. So that's the one thing that we can say, I think, with absolute certainty is no, this just wasn't one guy. and perhaps Ghislaine Maxwell and some criminal activity that was awful and ugly. There is in a sense a conspiracy of silence at the very least.
We know that because in two other industries there have been scandals in America of a similar level as the Jeffry Epstein scandal. You obviously had Harvey Weinstein from Hollywood, and you had this rapper called Diddy, I think, from the music industry, and they were doing things like this as well, and everybody knew about it too. Right? When they were eventually caught and locked up and convicted, well, everybody knew all along that this was happening. And so it's the same story here. These people knew this was happening all along.
Yeah, exactly. That conspiracy of silence. William, what do you make of the footage that was released? So initially we were told, no, there's no camera footage. The cameras were all off. There was nothing recorded. Which I guess initially seemed possibly plausible, ineptitude in a place of work. Didn't seem quite believable, but possible. And then, in actual fact, there is footage, and the footage, this is it, we've released it all for you. And then we discover that there's actually at least 1 minute missing. And now I believe the latest is that there's indication of possible doctoring as well of the footage that was released. What the heck do you make of this, William?
Well, it looks, so there's a lot of different things going on there, isn't there? It looks as if it's almost so many different adjustments to the story going on over time that someone would like people to be talking about this and bringing the story to light. I mean, that's kind of what it seems like. It doesn't seem plausible if they were, the story that we keep being given is changing all the time. And people can't believe the people who are telling them what's happening if they keep changing their story. And so you can't believe what they're telling us about Epstein, that he killed himself. You can't believe all the stories if they change them all the time, basically, and they are changing them all the time. So we don't really know what has happened there. Perhaps he did kill himself. Perhaps someone else killed him and they're erasing the footage. But it is very peculiar that they are continually shifting the goalposts on what the official story around it is.
What do you make of, is it Alan Dershowitz, I think, who was his lawyer, Epstein's lawyer, and he sort of seems like a credible voice to me in some ways. He says he doesn't think that he was killed, but he thinks that he was helped to commit suicide. And so it sort of seems to me that might be a difference without a difference, in a sense, like someone made it possible, because it's not like the guards would just do that. There's someone high-powered surely has been involved in that. And it feels almost like it would have been offered to him as the way out. And it doesn't seem like something you do willingly in that situation that he's in. What do you make of that from Dershowitz? Well, again, it's hard to know for sure what's really going on here. But, I mean,
I guess we don't... he was saying things that people didn't like, that people didn't want being put out into the open, right? And so there's an incentive there, if people really want to suppress this information, for them to get rid of him in some way, kill him or take him away so he's not in the public eye anymore. If he's really, if this is really an intelligence operation, or some other sort of insidious thing, then you want to suppress public information and public knowledge of what is happening. And the theory of Whitney Webb and other people is that this is really just the tip of the iceberg, and Epstein is an example of a type of behavior, building these networks, blackmail networks, compromising these people, that is sort of endemic to the way intelligence agencies work throughout the developed world. And if Epstein is exposing this what's going on here, if he is just the tip of the iceberg, then you want to suppress information of that. And as long as he's alive, then people are talking about it, then more of this information is getting out there. And I guess they don't want that. So there's an incentive there to kill him or get rid of him or take him off the scene in some way. How pivotal,
Dieuwe, do you think the Prince Andrew moment was? Because it feels to me like that was one of those big moments where suddenly the level and the gravity of what this wasn't just exposed, but I get a sense that if you were someone who's in a high-level position in Western society who's been involved, all of a sudden you realise that even Prince Andrew's not safe from being exposed. It possibly ups the ante a little bit. Well, that was someone's been invaded.
Sorry, that's right. The helicopters are coming in.
Intelligence agencies are coming to
the
shut us
Apache
down.
gunships are coming to deal with this. But that was the big moment that everybody heard about the story. If you were to ask me, when did I hear about the story? It would have been from the Prince Andrew connection, because you have someone, high-ranking member of the royal family, the royal family, the number one royal family in the world. Prince Andrew himself was something like 8th in line to the throne, perhaps even a little bit closer. He was one of the active royals, the front bench, as far as the royal family is concerned, and he was a little bit known as the problem child, the troublemaker, and someone like him being exposed, being taken through court, there being concrete evidence that he was involved in this, it made it a story that everybody was interested in and wanted to know more about. And as you say, obviously, if you were some of these other people involved in this, then this suddenly became a big problem for you. And this is where you start to see more and more of these disavowals. This is actually the point, I believe, where you see both Epstein and Maxwell disappear from public life, because before this time you can find photographs, say, of Ghislaine Maxwell with Elon Musk. You can, at these elite parties, this is one that shows up in terms of people trying to find other people who are connected, and this is the one that always shows up for Elon Musk, that he's actually answered, so you get a little bit more of an interesting insight into what's going on. And he said, well, here are all these photos of you with Ghislaine Maxwell. And he says, well, I get invited to these parties, and everyone gets invited to these parties. They're run basically for the elite, right? And you turn up, and people, you assume that everybody there is part of your circle. So the elites, the wealthy, the powerful, they have these circles. They turn up to these parties. People take photos with you, and you have no inclination that these may be bad people, because, well, hey, they're at the parties with all of my friends. And so that's the angle that Elon Musk gave on that, saying, hey,
that's his story, and he's sticking to it.
But it is a way you would seek to protect yourself if you were engaged in these sinister behaviors, is that you insinuate yourself into relationships with many and varied, a